The freckles on Madeline Kendrick's face felt like a constellation of shame as she stepped off the dusty stagecoach in Willow Creek, Colorado, in the summer of 1873. She pulled her bonnet lower, casting a shadow over her features as the western sun beat down mercilessly on the small frontier town. "Last stop, Willow Creek," the stagecoach driver called out, tossing down her modest carpetbag with little ceremony. Madeline caught it with a small grunt, her white gloved hands gripping the worn leather tightly. At 22, she had traveled alone from Boston to this remote outpost, leaving behind a life of whispers and sidelong glances. Her aunt's letter had promised a fresh start, a chance to be someone new. Someone without the devil's kisses scattered across her face, as her former suitor had cruelly called them before breaking their engagement. The town sprawled before her, a single dusty main street flanked by wooden buildings. A saloon, general store, small church, and what appeared to be a sheriff's office made up the heart of Willow Creek. It wasn't much, but to Madeline it represented hope. "Miss, you looking for someone?" A weathered woman with kind eyes approached her. "New arrivals usually have someone waiting." Madeline touched her bonnet self-consciously, ensuring her face remained shadowed. "My aunt, Mrs. Eliza Thornton. She runs the dress shop." The woman's face brightened. "Oh, Eliza, of course. Her shop's just down the way. I can show you if you'd like." "Thank you, that's most kind." Madeline followed the woman, keeping her head down as they passed groups of townspeople. Men in dusty work clothes, women in practical frontier dresses, all seeming to belong in a way she feared she never would. The dress shop stood between the general store and a small hotel, its window displaying a simple but elegant wedding dress. The sight made Madeline's heart twinge. Once she dreamed of wearing white lace, before Thomas had seen her without powder and declared he couldn't possibly marry a woman with a face like that. A bell tinkled as they entered, and a slender woman with graying hair looked up from her sewing. "Madeline, my dear girl, you've arrived." Aunt Eliza rushed forward, embracing her niece warmly. "Thank you for bringing her, Martha." After Martha departed, Aunt Eliza stepped back to examine her niece. "Let me look at you. My goodness, you're a woman now." Instinctively, Madeline adjusted her bonnet, but her aunt gently lifted her chin. "Don't hide, dear, not here. This isn't Boston." "Habits are hard to break," Madeline whispered, reluctantly removing her bonnet. She braced herself for the familiar flash of distaste. Instead, Aunt Eliza smiled warmly. "You look just like your mother, beautiful." Tears threatened at the corners of Madeline's eyes. "Mother always told me my freckles were angel kisses, but no one else seemed to agree. People fear what's different." Aunt Eliza squeezed her hands. "But you'll find Willow Creek isn't like the city. People judge by actions here, not appearances." Madeline wanted desperately to believe her. "Now I've prepared the room above the shop for you, and tomorrow I'll introduce you around town. I've mentioned my talented niece who will be helping in the shop, and several ladies are already eager to meet you." That night, as Madeline prepared for bed in her small but comfortable room, she stood before the mirror, forcing herself to look at her reflection without powder or shadows. Freckles, countless in number, danced across her nose, cheeks, and forehead. Some days she could almost believe her mother's fairy tale that they were angel kisses. Most days she remembered Thomas's disgust. "A new start," she whispered to herself, touching her reflection. "A chance to be someone new." Dawn broke early over the mountains, casting long shadows through Madeline's window. She dressed carefully in one of her simpler dresses, applying a light layer of powder to her face. Not enough to completely hide her freckles that would require far too much and would look unnatural, but enough to soften their appearance. Downstairs, Aunt Eliza was already arranging fabric bolts when Madeline joined her. "Good morning, dear. Sleep well." "Better than on that dreadful stagecoach," Madeline replied with a small smile. "Wonderful. I thought you might help me with some cutting this morning. Mrs. Peterson's daughter is getting married next month and we're making her dress." The work was soothing. Madeline had always excelled at needlework, finding peace in the precise, ordered stitches. By midday, they had made significant progress, and Aunt Eliza suggested they break for lunch at the small cafe across the street. The best apple pie in Colorado territory, she promised. Madeline hesitated. Perhaps I should freshen up first. Understanding flickered in her aunt's eyes. The powder isn't necessary, but if it makes you comfortable, go ahead. Outside, the street was bustling with midday activity. Madeline kept her eyes downcast, focusing on the wooden boardwalk beneath her feet rather than the curious glances of strangers. She was so intent on avoiding eye contact that she didn't notice the man rounding the corner until they collided. Strong hands steadied her as she stumbled. "Whoa there, madam." Madeline looked up into the bluest eyes she'd ever seen. They belonged to a tall, broad-shouldered man with sun-bronzed skin and a gentle smile. His clothes were dusty from the trail denims, a simple shirt and a worn leather vest. A cowboy's hat hung from a string at his back. "I apologize for my clumsiness," Madeline said, quickly looking down again, acutely aware that her bonnet had shifted in the collision. She adjusted it hastily. "No harm done," the man replied, his voice as warm as summer honey. "You must be Miss Kendrick, Eliza's niece from back east." Madeline glanced at her aunt, who was watching the interaction with barely concealed amusement. "Daniel Prescott. This is indeed my niece, Madeline. Daniel runs the Prescott Ranch just outside town. He supplies most of Willow Creek with beef and occasionally helps the sheriff when needed." "A pleasure, Miss Kendrick," Daniel said, tipping an invisible hat. "Welcome to our little corner of the West." "Thank you, Mr. Prescott." Madeline managed a polite nod without fully raising her face. "Daniel just lost his father last winter," Aunt Eliza explained. "He's been running the ranch on his own since." A shadow crossed Daniel's face. 6 months now, still getting used to it." "I'm sorry for your loss," Madeline said softly. Daniel's smile returned, though slightly subdued. "Much obliged. You ladies headed to Florence's cafe. The special today is chicken and dumplings, best in the territory." "Indeed we are," Aunt Eliza confirmed. "Would you care to join us?" Madeline shot her aunt a panicked look, which Eliza pretended not to notice. "I'd be honored," Daniel answered, "but I've got business with the blacksmith." "Perhaps another time." Madeline couldn't hide her relief as they continued to the cafe. Once seated, Aunt Eliza chuckled. "Daniel Prescott is one of the finest young men in Willow Creek. 28 years old, runs the most successful ranch for 50 miles and still unmarried. Half the eligible women in town have set their caps for him. He seems nice," Madeline replied noncommittally. "More than nice. His father was hard as nails, but Daniel has a gentle heart. Takes after his mother, God rest her soul." Madeline changed the subject. "The cafe is charming." But Aunt Eliza wasn't finished. "You know, he comes into the shop regularly, says he's buying gifts for his housekeeper, but I suspect he's lonely in that big ranch house." "Aunt Eliza, please." Madeline felt her cheeks growing warm beneath her powder. "I didn't come here looking for a husband." Her aunt patted her hand. "Of course not, dear. I'm merely providing local information." For the next week, Madeline settled into a routine. Mornings and afternoons were spent in the dress shop, helping with sewing and occasionally assisting customers. She discovered she had a talent for sketching designs that appealed to the frontier women, practical yet flattering. Gradually, she began meeting the townspeople. Though she still wore her bonnet low and applied powder each morning, on Friday afternoon the shop bell jingled and Daniel Prescott stepped in, hat in hand. His presence filled the small space, though he moved with the careful grace of a man accustomed to working with skittish creatures. "Afternoon, Eliza," he greeted, then tipped his head toward Madeline. "Miss Kendrick." "Mr. Prescott," Madeline replied, focusing intently on the fabric she was measuring. "What brings you to town today, Daniel?" Aunt Eliza asked. "Ranch business, mostly, and—" He hesitated, glancing at Madeline. "I wondered if you ladies might like to attend the town social tomorrow night. The community hosts one every month, and it seems a good opportunity for Miss Kendrick to meet more folks." Aunt Eliza beamed. "What a wonderful idea. We'd be delighted, wouldn't we, Madeline?" Panic fluttered in Madeline's chest. A social meant dancing, close conversation, bright lamps that would reveal every freckle no matter how much powder she applied. "I'm not much for dancing," she demurred. Daniel's smile didn't falter. "No need to dance. There's music, food, conversation. The whole town turns out. Even old Jenkins, who claims to hate everyone." When Madeline remained hesitant, he added quietly, "Willow Creek's good people, Miss Kendrick. Different from big cities, I reckon." Something in his tone, understanding without pity, made her look up and truly meet his gaze for the first time. His eyes held no judgment, only warmth. "Perhaps for a little while," she conceded. Daniel's smile widened. "I'll come by around 7 then, if that's agreeable." After he left, Madeline rounded on her aunt. "You planned this." "I did no such thing," Eliza protested innocently. "Though I won't pretend to be displeased by the development." The next evening arrived too quickly. Madeline stood before her mirror, dismayed. The heat had made her powder cake and appear unnatural, drawing more attention to what she tried to hide rather than concealing it. With a frustrated sigh, she washed her face clean. The freckles stared back at her, more pronounced than ever against her pale skin. She considered staying home, claiming illness, but she'd given her word. Aunt Eliza knocked softly. "May I come in?" Madeline opened the door, her face bare and vulnerable. "Oh, my dear." Eliza took her hands. "You look lovely." "I look spotted," Madeline said flatly, "like a speckled hen. You look like yourself, and that's more than enough." Her aunt handed her a small, wrapped package. "I was saving this for your birthday next month, but perhaps tonight is better." Inside was a delicate green silk scarf that perfectly matched Madeline's eyes. "It's beautiful. Your mother always said green was your color. It brings out your eyes and complements your auburn hair and—" "Yes, your freckles too." Madeline's throat tightened. "I miss her." "As do I." Eliza helped arrange the scarf as a shawl over Madeline's best dress. "There, now you'll be the belle of the social." Daniel arrived precisely at 7, dressed in clean denims and a pressed shirt, his usually unruly hair tamed. His eyes widened appreciatively when he saw Madeline, lingering briefly on her face before he offered a gentlemanly bow. "Miss Kendrick, you look like springtime." The unexpected compliment brought warmth to her cheeks. "Thank you, Mr. Prescott." The town hall was transformed for the social. Lanterns hung from the rafters, casting a golden glow over the wooden floor. A small band played lively tunes, and tables lined the walls, laden with food brought by townsfolk. Daniel stayed close as they entered, introducing Madeline to people she hadn't yet met. To her surprise, no one stared at her freckles, or if they noticed, they gave no sign. Conversation flowed easily about cattle prices, the coming harvest, and gossip about who was courting whom. "See, not so terrible," Daniel said as they sampled Mrs. Henderson's famous apple dumplings. "I confess it's nicer than I expected," Madeline admitted. The band struck up a waltz and couples moved to the dance floor. "Would you reconsider that stance on dancing?" Daniel asked, offering his hand. Madeline hesitated. Dancing meant close proximity, faces inches apart. "I'm not very practiced. Fortunately, I've been told I lead well enough." His smile was gentle, undemanding. Before she could overthink it, Madeline placed her hand in his. His palm was warm and calloused, speaking of honest work and steady character. Daniel guided her smoothly, maintaining a respectful distance while still following the dance properly. "You move like you've done this before." "I attended a few socials in Boston," she admitted. "Before." "Before what?" The words slipped out before she could stop them. "Before my fiancé decided he couldn't marry a woman with a face full of freckles." Daniel missed a step, then quickly recovered. "He said that to you?" Madeline looked away. "Among other things." His hand tightened slightly on hers. "Then he was a fool, Miss Kendrick." The conviction in his voice made her look up. In his eyes, she saw no pity, only a quiet anger on her behalf. "Where I come from," Daniel continued, "we judge folks by what's inside, not the wrapping paper. A noble sentiment, but not always practiced. Maybe not, but I like to think we try harder out here. He guided her through a turn. Besides, anyone who'd reject you over something so unsightly, she supplied. Beautiful, he corrected firmly. Anyone who'd reject you over something so beautiful isn't worth your time. Madeline nearly stumbled. You can't possibly think Freckles are beautiful. Daniel's eyes crinkled at the corners, and why not? Because they're spots. Marks, flaws. To me, they're like stars scattered across the sky. His voice lowered, meant only for her. And I've spent many nights under western stars, Miss Kendrick. I find them nothing short of miraculous. Warmth spread through Madeline's chest, unfurling like a flower reaching for the sun. No one except her mother had ever spoken of her freckles with anything but disdain or pity. The dance ended, and Daniel escorted her to get a cup of punch. As they sipped their drinks, Sheriff Miller approached, his expression serious. Daniel got a minute. Daniel excused himself, stepping aside with the sheriff. Madeline couldn't hear their conversation, but Daniel's face grew increasingly grave. When he returned, his easy smile had vanished. I apologize, but I need to leave. There's trouble at the North Pasture cattle rustlers. The sheriff needs men. Concern flickered across Madeline's face. That sounds dangerous. It can be, he admitted, but it's part of ranch life out here. Eliza will see you home safely. Before he left, he hesitated, then added softly, I meant what I said, Miss Kendrick, about the stars. For 3 days, Madeline heard nothing from Daniel. She tried to focus on her work in the shop, but found herself glancing up whenever the bell jingled, hoping to see his tall frame in the doorway. Rustlers can be nasty business, Aunt Eliza said on the 3rd morning, noticing Madeline's distraction. But Daniel knows what he's doing. I'm not worried, Madeline lied. Her aunt's knowing smile said she wasn't fooled. That afternoon, the bell jingled and Sheriff Miller entered. His expression was somber and Madeline's heart dropped. Afternoon, ladies, he greeted. Got news from the North Pasture. Madeline's fingers tightened on the fabric she held. Is everyone all right? Caught the rustlers, but there was shooting. 2 of them dead, 1 wounded. He paused. Daniel took a bullet. The fabric slipped from Madeline's suddenly numb fingers. Is he? She couldn't finish the question. He's alive, the sheriff assured her quickly. Doc patched him up at the ranch. Bullet went clean through his shoulder. He's stubborn as a mule, though refused to stay in town where Doc could keep an eye on him. Insisted on going back to the ranch. Relief made Madeline's knees weak. But he'll recover, should do with proper care. Problem is, his housekeeper's visiting her sister in Denver and he's out there alone. Doc's worried about fever setting in. Aunt Eliza stepped forward. Then someone should check on him, the sheriff nodded. That's why I came. Wondered if you ladies might have some broth or such I could take out there. Most of the men are still rounding up the scattered cattle. We'll do better than that, Eliza declared. Madeline will go. Aunt Eliza, Madeline protested, heat rising to her cheeks. You're an excellent nurse. You cared for your father through his final illness, and I can't leave the shop with Mrs. Peterson's wedding dress unfinished. The sheriff looked between them. It's about an hour's ride. I can provide a wagon. Before Madeline could form a coherent objection, plans were made. Within the hour, she found herself in a small wagon, a basket of food and medical supplies at her feet, headed for the Prescott Ranch. The landscape opened up as they left town, revealing rolling hills dotted with cattle and framed by distant mountains. Despite her worry, Madeline couldn't help but admire the wild beauty of the West. The Prescott Ranch appeared first as a distant speck, then gradually took shape a substantial 2-story home with several outbuildings and corrals. It spoke of generations of hard work and prosperity. The main house has stood for 20 years, Sheriff Miller commented as they approached. Old man Prescott built it for his wife, wanted her to have a proper home, not just a cabin. The wagon rolled to a stop before the house. I'll help you in, then need to head back. Got deputies watching the rustler we caught. Daniel answered their knock, his face pale beneath his tan, his left arm in a sling. Surprise, then pleasure, flickered across his features when he saw Madeline. "Miss Kendrick, this is unexpected." "Mr. Prescott, you should be in bed," she chided gently, noting how he leaned against the doorframe for support. "Been in bed 2 days. Needed to move around." His attempt at nonchalance was undercut by the sheen of perspiration on his brow. Sheriff Miller helped bring in Madeline's things, gave brief instructions on how to reach town in an emergency, then departed, leaving them alone. An awkward silence fell. Madeline had not considered how improper this situation might appear until this moment, an unmarried woman alone with a bachelor in his home. Daniel seemed to read her thoughts. "My housekeeper's room is downstairs. You can stay there, and I promise to be a perfect gentleman." Relief eased some of her tension. "Thank you. Now please sit before you fall over. I need to check your wound." To her surprise, he complied without argument, settling into an armchair in the parlor. The room was comfortable but masculine leather furniture, bookshelves filled with volumes on ranching and history, and a few landscapes painted in rich oils. Madeline set down her basket and approached him. "I'll need to see the wound." Daniel's eyes held hers for a moment, then he carefully shrugged out of his good arm from his shirt, leaving it hanging from his injured shoulder. The bandage wrapped around his upper chest was spotted with blood. Madeline worked methodically, removing the soiled bandage to reveal an angry red wound. "It needs cleaning." Daniel hissed as she applied antiseptic but otherwise remained stoically silent. His skin was hot to the touch. "You have fever," she observed, concern coloring her voice. "It'll pass." "Not if the wound festers." She applied a fresh bandage, her fingers gentle but sure. "You need to rest, eat, and drink plenty of water." "Yes, madam," he said with a weak smile. After helping him to bed upstairs, Madeline set about preparing chicken broth from the supplies she'd brought. The kitchen was surprisingly well appointed, speaking to the housekeeper's influence. When the broth was ready, she carried a tray upstairs. Daniel was asleep, his breathing slightly labored. She hesitated to wake him, but knew he needed nourishment to fight the fever. "Mr. Prescott," she called softly. "Daniel." His eyes fluttered open, focusing slowly on her face. A smile touched his lips. "I thought I dreamed you. No dream, just me bringing broth." She helped him sit up enough to eat, supporting his back with pillows. As he sipped the broth, his eyes never left her face. "You're not wearing powder," he observed. Self-consciously, Madeline touched her cheek. In her haste to pack and travel, she had forgotten her cosmetics. "I apologize for my appearance. Don't." His voice was soft but firm. "Don't ever apologize for being exactly who you are." Something in his gaze made her breath catch. No one had ever looked at her with such open admiration. "You think I'm being kind," Daniel continued. "I'm not. I'm being honest. Your freckles are beautiful because they're part of you, and you, Madeline Kendrick, are the most beautiful woman I've ever known." Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes. "You barely know me." "I know enough. I know you're kind, brave, and skilled. I know you came to help a near stranger because it was the right thing to do." His hand, warm with fever, found hers. "And I'd like the chance to know more." That night, Daniel's fever spiked. Madeline kept vigil, bathing his forehead with cool cloths, urging water between his parched lips when he was lucid enough to swallow. In his delirium, he spoke of his father, of cattle that needed tending, and sometimes of her. "Stars," he murmured once, reaching toward her face. "Beautiful stars." By dawn, the fever broke. Madeline, exhausted, dozed in a chair beside his bed. She woke to find him watching her, his eyes clear and alert. "You stayed," he said simply. "Of course." "Thank you." The words carried weight beyond their simplicity. For the next 3 days, Madeline remained at the ranch, nursing Daniel back to strength. They talked for hours about her life in Boston, his dreams for the ranch, books they'd read, and places they hoped to see. With each conversation, the connection between them deepened. On the 3rd day, Daniel was strong enough to sit on the porch. The western sunset painted the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks, casting a golden glow over the land. "It's breathtaking," Madeline said, sitting beside him. This land gets in your blood, Daniel replied. I can't imagine being anywhere else. A comfortable silence settled between them. I need to return to town tomorrow, Madeline finally said. Aunt Eliza will worry and there's work waiting. Daniel nodded slowly. I understand. He turned to face her, but I hope you'll come back. Not as a nurse, but as my guest. I'd like to show you the ranch properly, the high meadow, the creek, all of it. Hope bloomed in Madeline's chest. I'd like that. Madeline. He took her hand. I know we haven't known each other long, but I've never felt this way about anyone. When I'm with you, everything makes sense. She smiled, no longer hiding her face. I feel it too. I'm not asking for promises yet, just a chance to court you properly. You don't mind what people will say about my... Daniel reached out, gently tracing a constellation of freckles across her cheek. Let them talk. I know what I see when I look at you. And what's that? She whispered. Stars. My own personal night sky. His eyes held hers. May I kiss you, Madeline? Her answer was to lean forward, closing the distance between them. His lips met hers, gentle at first, then with growing confidence. When they parted, both were breathing faster. I should have asked sooner, Daniel murmured. Madeline laughed softly. We have time. Over the following months, Daniel courted Madeline properly. He brought flowers to the dress shop, escorted her to church socials, and took her riding across his land. With each passing day, her confidence grew. She stopped wearing powder, gradually accepting that the people of Willow Creek judged her by her character, not her complexion. In the autumn, as golden leaves drifted from the aspens, Daniel brought Madeline to the high meadow overlooking the ranch. A picnic was spread on a blanket, complete with apple pie from Florence's cafe. After they ate, Daniel grew uncharacteristically quiet. Is something wrong? Madeline asked. He took her hands. Nothing's wrong, everything's right for the first time in my life. From his pocket, he withdrew a small box. I had this made in Denver. Inside was a delicate gold ring set with tiny diamonds arranged in a pattern. It's the constellation Cassiopeia, Daniel explained. Visible year-round in the northern sky, always constant, always beautiful. He took a deep breath. Like my love for you, tears filled Madeline's eyes as he continued. Madeline Kendrick, would you do me the honor of becoming my wife? I promise to spend every day counting my blessings and your freckles if you'll have me. Yes, she whispered, then louder, yes. As he slipped the ring onto her finger, she marveled at the journey that had brought her here from hiding in shame to being loved completely, freckles and all. They were married in the spring, with Aunt Eliza beaming proudly in the front pew of Willow Creek's small church. Madeline wore a dress of her own design, with no veil to hide her face. As they exchanged vows, sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating her features. Daniel lifted her face to his as they were pronounced husband and wife. My beautiful starry-faced bride, he whispered before kissing her. Later, at their wedding celebration, an elderly woman approached Madeline. You remind me of myself long ago, she said, revealing freckles across her weathered face. I hid them for years until my herald told me they were kisses from angels. Been married 58 years now, Madeline smiled. My mother used to say the same. Smart woman, your mother. The old woman patted her hand. Never hide who you are, child. The right people will see your beauty. That night, in the privacy of their bedroom at the ranch house, Daniel traced the pattern of freckles across Madeline's shoulders. Did you know, he murmured, that sailors navigate by the stars? Is that so? She asked, smiling against his chest. Indeed. And I'll spend my life navigating by yours, he kissed her gently. Each one a point of light guiding me home. Madeline Prescott, no longer hiding, turned her face up to her husband's. In his eyes, she saw her reflection not as flawed, but as perfectly, uniquely herself. I love you, she whispered. Freckles and all. No, he corrected, holding her close. Not in spite of them, because of them. They're part of the woman I love, every beautiful, perfect spot. Under the vast Colorado sky, they began their life together, a love story written in stars, both in the heavens above and on the face of a woman who had finally found where she belonged.